So good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's HRLocker webinar. My name is Christelle Rinn, and I'm Head of Product Marketing here at HRLocker. In today's webinar, what we wanted to go through with how to do those one-to-ones this time of year when a lot of people are working remotely. So I'm going to be going through how to set up your one-to-ones remotely, what processes you need to go through to really make sure that that you have everything clearly defined within your company, as well as clearly communicated to your managers and both your employees. So go through that one-to-one planning stage. Then I'll go through with how to actually conduct the one-to-one end of year review. And I'll be showing you how to do that through our performance management system here, which is RTR, and also go through how I currently do it with my reports here at HRLocker. And then I'll also go through a bit about how, so after the review is completed, the importance of actually discussing with your employees what further development may be required, or how you can help them excel at their job and to actually reach their goals at the end of the year or going into next year with that future planning. Doing the one-to-one planning here at HRLocker, we spend a lot of time doing our own behaviours and our own principles and our own set of behaviours and principles here at HRLocker to make sure that we're not only talking to people about how they do their job, but really in what way they're doing it. So what behavior, what does good look like? When they're doing their day-to-day job, are they using good teamwork? Are they using good customer focus? Are they using good integrity? So obviously in HRLocker we have a lot of data and things like that. So integrity is a huge behavior for us, and that's really important when you're starting to implement performance management into your company, that you start at that level of, okay, so how are we going to actually measure? How are we going to put in a good culture, a good performance management metric into our actual company? And a good place to start with that is with your behaviours and principles. So on our actual website, we do have, if you go to the About Us section, we have a free downloads section where we do have a list of free behaviours and principles templates. So on that template, there's a list, I think, of 5 or 6 different behaviours or principles. And it goes through, for example, teamwork, what does it look like, how you should use it and things like that. And it's a good language to put in place when you're talking with your employees and you're doing an end of year review with them, or a goal setting or objective setting or whatever it is you're calling your company. It's a good language to be able to have to say, well, do you think you use teamwork, or how are you going to use teamwork for that? Or how do you think if we base customer centricity around this, or how do you think you used customer centricity, or in this certain situation. So it's a good way to create a shared language that people understand, and they understand the key definitions and the key areas around each behavior. So please do feel free to go to the download section and download the templates there. I do have Jenny here with me as well, and she'll be sending, after this webinar, as usual, she'll send a copy of the actual webinar, as well as a few free downloads, so the behavior templates, as well as kind of do's and don'ts and reviewed checklist and things like that. And then, as always, as well, if you do have any questions throughout the webinar, please feel free to ask any questions, and I will answer them all at the end. And Jenny will be there to pass the questions over to me. So really, that for me is the starting point of when you're trying to put in a performance management system, is really to start with your behaviors and your principles, and then we'll go into your setting your goals. So I suppose make sure that, when we were doing the real-time reviews and we were talking about the goals section here, we had talks with a lot of different companies that they were saying, well, we don't call them goals, we call them objectives, or we don't call them objectives, we call them KPIs. So on these tabs here within the real-time review section, when you're talking about goals, or when we're talking about goals, it's really important that if Goals is not the word that you use within your company. These are all, these can all be changed. So go in and make sure you're using the terminology that you use in your company. You know, so if it is objectives that you're talking about or KPIs or things like that, make sure you're going in and changing and customizing these tabs to actually be what is the word that you currently use. You know, so also I think it's quite important when you're starting this process, if you're going to be doing your end of year reviews, you know, certainly here we do quarterly reviews, so it's not a big surprise at the end of the year. So I do think that, you know, kind of that annual appraisal is something that we would definitely say, you know, you shouldn't be doing a review with somebody every 12 months. It should be something that is done on a more regular basis. So you're not talking about things that happened in January or February of last year. You know, you're talking about things that are recently relevant and that have just happened, and you know, things of how you can, and because ultimately the real purpose of a review is really to talk about, okay, so these could have been the issues or the wins that we've had in the last few months, but what are we going to do going forward? What can we help you to do to go forward, and how can we actually, is there areas that there are skill gaps? Are there areas that you need support with? If there's training or mentoring or anything like that, and that's a huge focus of the review as well. So make sure that you're taking time out to have a think about that as well, as in terms of, you know, it's not just about reviewing past performance, it's about making sure that the person is set up for success going forward as well. So really, and then, you know, I can't really stress this enough, is that if you're going to go down this year is very different. A lot of the time we will be having meetings with people in person. That probably won't happen this year, so it will all be done remotely. And when you're getting your managers to do your reviews this year, if you're doing end of year reviews or starting your reviews off next year, or appraisals, again, whatever terminology you're using in your company, it's important that your managers are on board as well, and that every manager understands, okay, what are the goals and objectives of the company? How do we actually do reviews in this company? And what's the expectation of me? You know, so that's extremely clearly defined to your management team, clearly defined to anybody who's actually going to be doing reviews, as well as also to the individual who will actually be doing the review. It's their review, so that everybody's on the same page and everybody knows what to expect from the review. So I'm just going to really go through, I suppose, how we do it here. What we have found really works well here. Obviously, we've had a remote team for quite a while. We were never 100% remote, but obviously at the moment we are 100% remote. So it is a case of trying to make sure that that we're ending the year the same way that we started it, you know, with making sure that being remote isn't an excuse not to do that end of year catch up. So if you see here, I'm currently logged into HRLocker, and I'm logged in here as Adrian Burke, and I'm actually logged in as the administrator of the system. And that obviously means, which many of you I'm sure I'm very familiar with, is that means that you can see and do everything in the system. So now I've logged in as Adrian Burke, and I've logged into here to RTR. This is my own review here, but I'm just going to show you, I'm going to set up a review for one of my employees. I'm going to choose Christelle here. I can go in here and I can schedule the review. So obviously you're going to pick a date that suits everybody. So we're going to go for the 19th of November, and the review type. So one of the things we really found out with RTR as well is that ultimately it is a meeting setting and recording tool. So it can be used for a number of different things. I'm going to be going through now how to set up your end of year review. But, you know, it can also be used for, and these are all customizable. So we do have some default types of reviews in here, but you can customize it to your own company. So if you see here, we have an exit interview, if they're happening, half yearly review, your monthly review, your probation review, which is important. So you can set it up here, return to work. So that, you know, if somebody's been off sick, or if there's a reason that you want to actually do, they've been on long-term sick leave or anything like that, salary review. And we also do some, so you can put in mentoring sessions here. It kind of really anything here that it's a meeting between the manager and the employee, and it's a record of what's happened, both from the manager side and the employee side. So it's important that anything like that you're recording, and this is a nice and easy way to do it. And then unfortunately, which if we want to go down a negative route, you can also do any disciplinaries or anything like that. Your exit interviews here as well, you can record them here. I would say that for any of these reviews that, yes, very important that once you've requested them, I'm just going to show you here, I'm going to request the end of your appraisal. We're going to say at 9 o'clock in the morning. Okay, and we're going to do for an hour. Okay, so now Adrian has requested that actual review with the individual. The employee will get, so you see it's here, the employee will get an email saying that their manager has requested this review type with them. Very important at this stage, I feel, is that the manager is putting in the key points. So this key point section, so again, these are all customizable, these fields here. This is the way we do it here, and this is the way it's been set up. But if there is different language that you're using within your organization, you make sure that you're changing that to the language that suits your organization. But I do think very important, the very first tab here is the key points. So I have here what key points will be discussed during the meeting. And I think that is probably one of the most important tabs that you're going to fill out. And that is really to ensure that when the employee goes for their meeting or their review, whatever kind of meeting it is, that they understand what the agenda is and they understand what they need to prepare. And they also understand really what's expected of them for the meeting. So the key points here could be to discuss Q3's outcome, discuss Q1 goals. So really anything that will be discussed during the meeting, and if there's any other issues or anything, that make sure that you're putting in the key points here, and that means the employee knows, okay, I understand what I need to do to prepare to come to the meeting. Even if it's key points here that to say this meeting will be done through Teams or Zoom or whatever it is, whatever means that you're actually using. So just a sidebar on that is that we will be in the next few weeks putting in our own video recording into this as well, so that you won't have to use Teams or Zoom. It'll actually be that you can just record it here within real-time reviews, if that's something that appeals to you. Because I do think so any of the reviews that we do here, we do record them, and so we use Microsoft Teams here. So we record the review and then we upload a copy of the review against this file as well. And really just to make sure that everybody's on the same page. We're a very open, transparent company, that anything that may be a bit ambiguous or that may have been lost in translation, that we're all on the same page. So we put in here the key points. Now, the also thing is to make sure, and I always usually put a little bit of a note in here saying to the employee, please put in any points that you would like to discuss, because at the end of the day, the review is a time for the employee and the manager to get some one-on-one time to discuss things that have happened, but also things that are we want to achieve in the future. So it's not often a time do you get a chance to sit down with your manager one-on-one for an hour. So make sure that you're saying to the employee, so what points would you like to discuss? And they can have this. They have this little section here. So when they log in as an employee, they're able to put in some information here. So they might put in here, yes, that's all fine. I'd also like to discuss maybe this account or this process or this training or something like that, just so that then obviously the manager also knows what to prepare for. So I always usually fill this out prior to prior to the meeting to make sure that everybody's on the same page. Sorry, the other thing that I do before that as well is I make sure to put in the goals. So usually what I do is I take the goals from the previous meeting. So you see all the previous meetings that are here. They're all lined up here, and I take the goals and I put them into, I copy them into the goal section. Excuse me, so that we can talk about the goals as well that have been already set, and that we are going to be discussing in the review again. So it's very open and transparent. The employee knows exactly what to expect. The employee understands that we will be focusing on some of these goals, and to make sure that they're prepared, that these will be discussed about as well. Again, there is a section here for the employee to go back and say, yes, that's great, happy to talk about these goals, or happy that these are the goals that have been set, or these are all fine, but maybe I'd like to change this, or something like that. So you can have that kind of two-way conversation here as well. It's very important. So after you've set this, the key points have been communicated to the employee and the manager, and you've gone back and forth and eventually decided on a time that's going to suit. And again, like I said, we use Microsoft Teams here, and we then go on to do a video call. And obviously, because we do those catch-ups constantly, it's never really a huge surprise. I do know where people are at on their goals, because we're doing the appraisals continuously. But it's important then that you really start off the review by having it being open and making sure that the employee is never on the back foot, and that you're trying to get as much information really as possible, so you can look forward. And if there was any issues that happened, if there may have been a goal missed or a deadline missed or an issue or something like that, that's where you really need to go back to your behaviours that you've said earlier. So for example, if your behaviours or your principles are teamwork, customer centricity, integrity, anything like that, or agility, initiative, there's just millions that you can choose from. But ultimately, like I said, it really gives you that language to say when you're meeting with the person, to say, okay, let's talk about this incident that happened. Do you think that was good teamwork? Or how do you think that good teamwork was showed there? Or do you think that was something that you used good ownership for? And it just gives a very good way to be able to have that discussion, that you're on a shared language and everybody understands what's going on. And that's really where you're going to be putting in the manager feedback here. So the manager then, the way that I do it, is that while I'm on the call, I take little notes here, but I do like to give the individual the full kind of my full attention. So I take little notes in the section here, and then after the call I type it up a bit better. But that's really just the way that I do it. If you're a quicker typer than me, maybe you can type it while you're on the call. So that's what I do here. I put down notes of the things we've discussed about, and then after the call I go and write it in a more legible way. And really what I do try to focus on the end of year, especially this year, is this has been a crazy year. We're going into a year next year, 2021, where it could be crazier. We're not too sure. So it's important that we're going through, okay, so what happened last quarter? How are we feeling? How are we set? Were there some goals that were missed? And why? I think this is the most important bit of is, if there were goals missed and there were goals set, why were they missed? What happened? Was there a skill gap? Was it the pandemic? What were the actual reasons why there were goals missed? Because that's the feedback that you want to get. And from an employee's perspective, if they're in an open, transparent setting where they feel like they can say, well, I missed that goal really because it felt I wasn't supported, or I didn't have the right tools, or I felt I need a bit of training for that, or I'm not good, I'm not 100% in that area, so I think I need a training course in that, or something like that. And that's really your job as a manager, to facilitate, to make sure that you're giving as many tools as possible for the employee to be successful, and ultimately then for the company to be successful. And the key thing to remember here, and I'm this is a bit of a hobby horse of mine, so I do apologize, is that it's important that it's not only training that can be required. You know, we do a lot of peer programming here, so where people are just side by side and they're learning from other people in the company. And I think that is sometimes hugely overlooked, that a lot of the time you have so many resources. If it's somebody who, for example, is a marketing executive and they feel like they need a little bit more training in SEO or digital marketing or something like that. If you do have somebody who has those skills in your company, maybe a mentoring session once a week or maybe 2 hours here and there in a structured way will be enough for that person to get what they need. And it creates a great work environment as well. And it's something we do here a lot. So after you go through all that and you've got the feedback, make sure that you're recording any concerns that the employee has. Really important here, make sure that you are recording anything here that you have agreed, because you know that's ultimately what this section is for, is to go through, well, this is what I've understood is what has been agreed. So you're going to put all that here as the manager. Then after your manager put that in, the employee will put down, well, their feedback of the review. So really what was discussed and what was understood, because this is also a very key thing for, and it's something that I would really make sure that your managers do understand and come back and look at is, well, has my employee actually understood what we spoke about and what was actually agreed, or was there something lost there? Because a lot of the time, you know, we're doing reviews, you know, you've done 10 already and you're so quick and you're going through things, and then you think you've agreed something, but actually the employee has thought something completely different, and vice versa as well. So that's why I think that these two sections, it's not just a case of just throwing it in there and never looking at it again. It is a case of making sure that both the manager and the employee has read, looked at the feedback and said, yes, that's exactly what I meant. Or this the time both for the manager and the employee to say, I've looked at your feedback and that's actually not really what I understood. This is actually what I really meant. And then for the manager and the employee to make sure that they're having that discussion to make sure, you know, what was the ask there, what was actually meant. And that's very important. They're putting that down. There is a little employee rating section here, and it's actually both in the manager and the employee section. You can change this to be numbers or smiley faces, depending on whatever way you like. And also, there's also a place here to upload any documents if you are using documents. So people are using, I'll tell you what these little smiley faces were, they're originally designed for, was that the employee and the manager are rating each other. So the employee is rating their manager. And this really would give a top-down view from an administrative perspective or HR director perspective or your CEO perspective to go, okay, well, how happy are my employees with their managers? And so to be able to kind of step in when there is an issue, and vice versa with the manager, you know, so really that's, but I have seen people use it in an awful lot of different ways. So that was the original design for it. What's a really nice way for people to use it then as well is that employee engagement rating as well. So you can change all these labels to say, well, you know, how happy are you in your job, or any questions like, you know, how some of the questions you could ask is how happy are you in your job, or how likely are you to recommend the company to somebody else, things like that. So you can measure the engagement here as well. And that's a nice way to measure an engagement score. So once they've gone through each of those steps, so you've set your key points, everybody understands what the agenda was about, you've set the goals, you've understood what all the goals are about, and maybe at this stage, after the manager's feedback and the employee feedback, you may go back to the goals and say, you know, these are the updates of the goals. We might change this goal going forward or something like that, but at least you're recording all the information here. And then this performance metrics. So the last bit of the performance metric is for the manager to fill out for the manager to fill out. And again, this is customizable and you can create it whatever way you want. We have our behavior set here, and you rate the individual then in regards to what how they've behaved on each of their behaviors, how they've scored on each of their behaviors, and then an overall score as well. And you can do these kind of 1 to 10 or whatever way you want it to be. And after you save the draft, very important that the employee has gone in, looked at it as well, and that they're happy, and then you complete it. One of the things I think is kind of always it's a step that's missed sometimes, and I think it's important, is that after any appraisal or review or meeting or anything like that, well, what's the follow-up? So I think it's important in any system that you're using that the next meeting is scheduled now. So whether that's in 3 or 4 months' time, or whether that's in, next month or whatever it is, make sure that you've gone in and scheduled the next meeting so that the employee knows what's going to happen next, and so they understand. And so I think that that's important. And we're at the moment, the world that we're in at the moment, people are very used to being on Zoom and being in Teams. We're so used to these meetings now that I don't think it's something that people should be afraid of doing appraisals or reviews online or remotely, because it's just something that people are very, very comfortable at the moment, and definitely not an excuse not to be doing them. Because I do think at this time it's probably more important than ever to be able to get that engagement with the person. So the last step, really, because I do think it's very important that after you've had the review with the individual or the meeting with the individual, and you've discussed some key areas that you think the individual may need to be upskilled in, or perhaps their job may be changing next year or anything like that, that they go in and they take a little bit of ownership themselves. They go into the training section here, and they request the actual training that is required. And that's, they can request their training here. So you press the request training. They can either choose the training that the company has already set up in their little training library, or they can request a new type of training. In the new type of training, they have to do a little bit of work for it, because they need to decide, well, they need to explain what's the expected outcome, what's the cost, more details. And that really means is that if somebody is going off requesting training, or has been said, okay, well, look, if you want to do some digital marketing courses, go off and investigate them and come back with a proposal of what you think may be the areas that you need, to make sure that they've gone off and taken that ownership for themselves and really controlling their own career in the company, and to make sure that they're in control of that as well. And then between their manager or your training manager, whoever has control of this section here, that it goes through the appropriate channels of approval. Through the CPD section as well, you can, I think you can also, it doesn't have to only be formal training. Any of that mentoring or anything that can also be requested through CPD, and a nice way to record it as well here. Obviously, as always, the report section is something that everything can be reported out on, So really, I'm just a bit conscious of time here. So I'm that's really the main thing about doing the reviews. Make sure that you're really having that open, transparent forum, that everybody is comfortable, and really important that everybody totally understands what's expected of them. So I'm just going over to Jenny now. I see some questions coming in, and we'll just go through them now. So is the RTR option charged per employee? So RTR is part of the Premium Plus package, and so that goes. It is in per employee charge. So if you're on a core or professional level, it'll move you to the Premium Plus. Now there is other things you get with that. For example, you'd get HRLocker and things like that. But what I would recommend is that certainly. The email that's going out now will have a meeting link, but definitely come and talk to us. Come discuss exactly what your requirements are, and we'll see how we can help you and work with you on getting it set up for you. That's another question coming in. So, as an administrator of HRLocker for my firm, how am I able to view everyone on the list that's located on the left-hand side? So here on the left-hand side, if you are an administrator of RTR, so that's the key part, is I'm just going to open this guy here. Okay, so you see here so I've gone into the directory, and I'm going into Adrian Burke here, and we're going into his settings. So obviously the settings here for time off, time on, CPT, and this is the key area that you want to look at here is for real-time review. So is RTR admin? So just because you're an administrator, it's a really good question. Just because you're an administrator of HRLocker does not mean that you're automatically an administrator of RTR. You need to come in here and make sure and click yourself as being an actual administrator. Once you are an administrator, you will be able to see everybody's reviews, and you'll see here you're able to, sorry, I'm just clicking back into RTR here, and that is exactly why I have this little tick box here that says my employees, because right now I'm seeing everybody in the whole company, but if I click my employees, I'm only now seeing the people that I actually do the reviews for. So that's how you turn that on for the actual individual. So where can I find the free downloads mentioned? So I've just got a little note here from Jenny saying that she's posted the link in the questions and answers section. And then as well as that, we'll be following up with an email after this, as always, with a copy of the webinar, as well as any downloads. So the downloads that will be going in the little pack, we try to kind of make them that they're relevant to you, is the behaviours and principles template, the kind of checklist for how to conduct a good review, different personality types, I think, as well. And so that's really key. Can an administrator schedule a review for another manager or employee? So an administrator can schedule reviews for other people. Okay, but you cannot fill them out. So you can schedule reviews for everybody in the system. If you're an administrator of RTR, you can schedule reviews for everybody. You can't accept them because obviously the individual has to make sure that that time suits them. But you can schedule them on behalf of other people, and then obviously the manager or the employee has to complete the feedback. So I'm just going to check here with Jenny to see are there any other questions. But so I mean, really, I think that. I don't think I covered this, I'm sorry. The last bit I wanted to go through is where we, so like I said, we record everything on Microsoft Teams, and we actually upload the video here in this section here. So we download it from Stream, and then we upload it here in this reviewer document section here. So we upload the video there. Just really, I think it's just a case that everybody's kind of on the same page, and it's something we've just got in the habit of doing. But there will be a little section here where there will be an online video recording, so you'll be able to do that here in the system as well. So thanks very much, everybody, for the questions. I hope you found it useful, and I hope you enjoy your end of year appraisals. And please reach out if there's anything at all. You know, this could be I'm sure for many of you, this is the first time you'll be doing those end of year appraisals remotely. You know, obviously we have some experience in doing it ourselves. So if there's anything, if you have any questions, or if you just want to maybe go through anything with us, please get in touch. And if you are looking to talk to anybody about how to actually set up RTR for your own company, there'll be a little, either drop a message in the little chat bubble here, or get in contact with myself. Everybody has my contact details, I hope. So I hope that was helpful to everybody, and we'll talk to everybody soon. Take care.